Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm re-releasing this old video because this pattern is finally for sale again. Go to @the_sign_of_the_golden_scissors. It's currently on pre-order and I'm guessing they will be selling it from this point forward. Stick around for my review and also at the second part where I show you how you can actually make this shirt on the machine and it will look like it's hand sewn. I don't know how the original authors of the pattern will feel about that, but it'll save you a ton of time if you can get the hang of the technique. So alrighty, best of luck, enjoy. Hi everyone, my name's Christina and I sew historical clothing. And today I'm super excited to talk to you about a technique I discovered for using your machine to make your clothing look like it's hand finished. So usually the happy golden medium is to sew the inside seams by machine and then hand finish everything. And that can be very time consuming if you have a lot of the inner flat-felled seams. And at the start of quarantine, I decided I would start working on menswear. And the first project I took on was a man's 18th century shirt. And I used this wonderful, wonderful pattern, the Larkin Smith, the Sign of the Golden Scissors shirt pattern, packed with information. I would say the only downside is it's a little confusing. Some of it's not quite in the order that I liked. So just one little tip there is if you do get that pattern, what I did was I scanned it in and I took out the pieces that I needed, put them in a document, printed that out, and this is what I used to work from. And as you can see, what I do is I put little check boxes next to each step. So just a quick intro on what project I'm working on that I'm going to show you the technique for, but you could use this technique on lots of other things. So I'm going to show you real quick my first shirt. I made it entirely by hand. I know you're like, what does this have to do with machine stitching? So all my friends during the quarantine had to hear about this shirt because it was the only thing going on in my life. But there it is. You've got these really cool cuffs, and then on the inside, lots and lots of seams that have to be finished off by hand, flat felled. You've got a hem. All that has to be with a hemming stitch, little tiny hemming stitch, and there's a lot of it. It goes on and on and on. So I made this one, and the next one I made also by hand was a Czech shirt. A very common fabric. Oh, I should tell you, this fabric is from fabricstore.com, and it is their handkerchief weight linen in optic white. Optic white is, I think, the proper white color. If you get their regular white color, it's kind of creamy, not quite what I needed. And then this one, same thing by hand. WmBooth Draper. This fabric is awesome. Very close to originals if you study that. So basically same technique there. Then, so the last one I made for my guy James, and he told me that wearing completely hand-sewn shirts out at events makes him nervous. So is there any way I would sew a shirt on the machine? And when you've gone through this process of over the years, trying to get myself to sew more and more, okay, it's hand finished, now it's all hand done. I hand do a lot of my own clothing. It was kind of like, oh, no, I can't go back to that. I can't just sew it on the machine. I do not want machine top stitching showing. Some groups and events don't even, they say you can't have machine top stitching showing. So I thought and thought, okay, how am I going to do this thing? Of course, you can sew the long seams on the machine, but what about all that? What about all those flat-felled seams? What am I going to do? So I remembered learning about a hemming stitch that they use to hem pants. And it goes doot, 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 doot. And you basically have the pieces folded together, and it just catches a little bit of the body of the pant and kind of looks like hand sewing. And so I thought I would give that a try on this. That didn't work so well, but what did work was a zigzag stitch set to a very narrow width, so that when you go off the edge actually entirely on one side, and then you just barely catch both of the layers, the fold and the body of it, when it comes back. In this case, it would be to the left. We catch it when you go to the left, and then when it goes to the right, it's off, and the left, it's on, and the right, it's off. And I did some experiments, and it turns out that looks very much like hand stitching. So I'm going to show you this shirt. Here it is. And I made it out of linen. This one is also from fabricstore.com, and it's their mix in, I think it's a 5.3 ounce weight. And this has been that, let's see if you can see it. That is machine stitching. And also that is machine stitching. So, and then all those awful flat felled seams, even on the inside, and then on the outside. I didn't iron that very well, but there you go. Actually, I didn't iron this at all. I love this. This is my favorite part. Sorry. Underneath the arm. The armpit's my favorite part of the shirt. So you can see all these little tiny dots. And if you don't believe me, this is what it looks like when you actually sew it by hand. Alrighty. So there's still little tiny dots where I sewed it by hand. Let's see. Oh, it's wrinkly. Yep. So same thing. There's little tiny dots. Let's see if you can see that. And now I still did, just as a little side note, if you're gonna do this on a shirt, which you could do this on a chemise. You could do this on all kinds of things. I'm currently trying to figure out how to do it on a lady's cap. I still did like the gathers. I gathered it on the machine. I sewed the inside on the machine, and then the outside I folded it over and whipped the individual little bumps to the outside to do the stroke gathers. So on the outside, that is still hand sewn. Same on the collar, same on this part. I still did that by hand on the outside. So where it really, really shows, then you're doing it by hand. Okay, so I did do a little film of me doing this technique, but I also wanted to show you the results. So for example, this is, and I did this on white and red thread so that you can see, this is hand sewing, and this is machine sewing. So I think they look just about exactly the same. So I'm super excited. I would love to have other people try it, or let me know what you think next time you make a shirt or a chemise or some other garment I haven't thought of. But yeah, there you go. I'll play the video of me actually doing it so that you can see. So good luck. Let me know what you think. Have a good day. Bye. Okay, I have my linen here, and it's been cut out very carefully by pulling a thread, so we have a very straight edge, and you should be able, because it's linen, to just kind of finger press the fold in place, the hem. So if you were doing the hems on the neck slit, we do those as small as possible. If you're doing the hem on the bottom of the shirt, that one can be a little bigger. And then if you're doing the flat felled seams on the inside of the shirt, those ones will be well, however big you did your seam allowance, whatever fabric's left over. So I'm just kind of going to run my finger along it here, and in my experience, that has been enough. So do that. So this is normally where you would start, and of course you would start here and you would do your hand stitching, but we are going to, in my experience, this works best. Start from this side, and I have my double fold there. This is the body of the garment, and so we're going to fold it like this, because these, that fold and that fold, are the two folds that we want to sew to each other. So I usually just get it started a little bit. Another thing you can do that's helpful is you can pin your hem if you have kind of wiggly fabric. Most linen is pretty easy to work with, but if you're making it out of something else, or if, I don't know, maybe it's thicker. Okay, so back to the step I was showing you. Here we are. We've got our little sandwich here, so you can see that. Okay, now just going to get it started. Slip it under my presser foot, and I've got some red thread here so you can actually see what's happening, because this is not my shirt. This is just a little sample piece. Now my current settings on my machine, I can tell it in millimeters. Other machines, maybe there's a dial to make it bigger or smaller, but I have it at a width of 2 millimeters and a length of 3 millimeters, and I want that width as tiny as possible, so that for me it helps give me more control as it goes back and forth, you'll see. And then the length, the 3 millimeters, I found through experimenting that that's what looks like my hand stitching that I've done in the past. So the goal is to make it look like I hand stitched it, and that's what my hand stitching looks like. Maybe historically theirs was smaller or bigger, I'm not sure. Okay, so to lower this down, just kind of get an idea of where it's going to go. Okay, perfect. So if you see that, it's very precise. You may not be able to see it, but the goal is to hit just barely as it goes to the left, just barely on the edge, and we want to go through both layers, and ideally you would pick up one thread of each. In reality, it's going to be a few threads, but the closer you can get to just hitting that edge, the more it's going to look like hand sewing. So I've had pretty good luck just kind of back stitching to get started. I'll go forward one, and then I'll go back. Okay, and that should hold my line for me. And let's see if you can see, maybe we can zoom in a little, if that helps. Okay, I'm gonna remove this because I can see myself forgetting it's there. It seems to be holding in place. So here we go. Just keep that right on top and start stitching. We'll go off, completely off of the fabric. That's the key to this. So when it goes to the right, it's going to go completely off of the edge, and then when it goes to the left, it's going to just hit both layers. So this is kind of a finicky thing, and you do get better at it. And if you take a big chunk, it's possible that it will show on the outside kind of unseemly. So sometimes you may need to take that back out, but usually it's fine. A good ironing will just flatten that out. And then it just looks like you took a big chunk while you were hand sewing. So I'm doing it slow to start, and then I'm like, okay, I've got my groove, and doing everything, and it's going pretty smoothly. Different kinds of fabric are easier to do this on, of course. And we're just sewing. I think you get the picture, and I think it's also going kind of blurry, so let's just back stitch a couple times. Okay, great. Now sometimes, like if you're at the end of the hem, or if you do this at the bottom of the neck slit, you are going to want to leave a little bit of a tail, because you can thread that through your needle and you can finish off neatly by taking a couple tacks once it's folded up into place. Or on the neck slit, you might want to do some overcast stitches once you've laid everything flat. So in that case, I would leave a nice long tail, tie off one of the edges or just tie them together, thread one, and then finish everything off neatly. So this is what it looks like. And I'll show you from this side. Okay, all right, let's see how I did. Let's see, focus, there we go. Look at that. I would say that's just about how it looks if I had extremely even hand stitching. So, yep, I just run my finger along it to keep it flat. I actually never iron my linen shirts while I'm working on them, but you could iron this and it would probably look even better. And then on the inside, which is super cool, if you are using a thread that's a good match, you can barely even see it and it will pretty much look like you did it by hand, even on the inside. There are two of those, so that does give it away, but it barely shows. So there you go. That's the technique. Give it a try and let me know what you think.